On Christmas Eve I stood outside my own son's picture window. There I watched a hired actor in a fake beard read my grandchildren the story I always read them, while my family laughed about how much easier the day was without me. A few hours later I ended every dime of support with one sentence: "Now Mall Santa Claus will pay your inheritance. I am out." Before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're tuning in from. My name is Martin Hale. I am 71 years old, a widower of 8 winters, grandfather to 4. I have never missed a birthday, a school play, or a single December where I did not drive a string of lights along a roofline that was not mine. I have cleared drains at midnight, signed papers I did not agree with because I did not want them to struggle, and said yes so often that yes became my resting breath. It did not begin with Christmas. It began 2 summers ago at a backyard barbecue when Michael, my son, unrolled a poster board like a boy with a school project and presented the 5th revision of his detailing startup. He had a logo with a wave and a car silhouette, and he was proud, rightly, of the website his friend had built for a discount. I should have clapped and shut my mouth. Instead I stepped forward, saw the unit costs written in small type at the bottom, and said, "Even if you land 3 cars an hour, the margins will flatten. You will not make rent off rinse fees." The laughter, fast and mercifully light, was not meant to wound. Someone clinked a beer bottle against Michael's bottle and turned my comment into a joke. Michael smiled tight and said, "That is Dad, our in-house budget hawk." I grinned and told myself I was helping. 2 weeks later, when the first month's numbers did not match the dream, Michael began to look at me as if my skepticism had caused a shortfall. There was another day. Hannah, my daughter, had a leak under her sink. She texted a photo with the words "Please help when you get a chance," and I drove over with a wrench and a new P-trap. I still had the spare key from the years when Nancy would stop by to drop off banana bread. Hannah was at a client appointment. I let myself in and fixed the leak, then left a note, "All set, sweetheart." When she came by that night she stood in my kitchen with her hands wrapped around a mug of tea and said, "Careful, Dad. You cannot keep letting yourself in." I said, "But you asked for help." She said, "I asked, not the locksmith." I said I understood, but the truth was I did not. Not then. By November of this year, the jokes were no longer light. They had grown their own legs, then teeth. And after everything, they uninvited me for Christmas. Not just my son, not just my daughter. All of them, in chorus, an echo chamber of polite explanations and cruel little jokes that travel faster than snowflakes in a hard wind. We did not start out cruel. No family does, not on purpose. Cruelty creeps in as a cousin of convenience, a joke here, a boundary there, a text message sent to the wrong thread that reveals what the right thread truly thinks. It began 3 Tuesdays after Thanksgiving, when the town had only just set their red ribbons around the old iron street lamps and the grocery store had stacked boxes of brittle gingerbread forms against a pyramid of canned yams. My phone rang. The caller ID read Michael. "Hey, Dad," my son said, voice thin with forced cheer. Quick logistics question about the 24th. We do not start with hello anymore. We start with logistics. Go on, I said. Aaron's parents are coming earlier than planned. And Kathy's bringing the twins. Christmas morning is going to be packed. He exhaled. So we figured it might be better if you did Christmas Eve with us over Zoom, and then we'll do a nice brunch on the 26th. It keeps things simple. Simple. An odd word to describe removing a man from his own traditions. I looked at the refrigerator magnet that holds the photograph of Michael at 7, eyes unguarded, cheeks raw from a cold day of sledding. He is holding a lumpy snowman ornament I helped him shape, thumbprints visible in the clay like proof of 2 lives pressed together. Understood, I said. Dad. Understood, I repeated, because it was easier than saying what trembled inside my ribcage. When did I become extra? We ended the call with promises that felt like receipts. I stood in the kitchen for a long time afterward, not moving, listening to the house settle the way it does as temperatures fall, timbers whispering to one another, tiny adjustments and concessions. I ran the tap until the water went from warm to hot to nearly scalding, then shut it off and watched the steam uncurl from the sink as if the house were exhaling on my behalf. That same afternoon, my daughter, Hannah, sent a message to our family group chat. There are 8 of us in that thread, me, my sister, Lorraine, her husband, Al, my children, their spouses. There are 2 chats, really, the one I am in and the one with the same name that I am not in. I did not know about the second one for years. People are careful until they are not. Hannah wrote, Dad, for scheduling, let us skip Christmas this year. The kids are so overstimulated. We will do a quiet day and then maybe a walk over the weekend. Lorraine replied with a gold heart. Al sent a thumbs up. Aaron posted a string of trees. Michael wrote, Love you, Dad. We will make it special another time. The part that told me what was true came later, by accident. Another ping. The same thread, so I thought. A short video of a man in a cheap fake beard sitting in a folding chair at the mall, children climbing his knees as a photographer angled for the shot. The caption was Hannah's, Get this guy for the house, LOL. He probably listens better than Dad. A second later, message deleted. I put my glasses on and looked more closely at the picture. It was the man from our town's indoor mall, the one who sets up in front of the temporary North Pole every year while parents wrangle strollers and lose their tempers. He had the face of someone who has learned not to take offense at strangers. I respect that kind of face. I used to wear it. I typed nothing. I deleted nothing. I sat down at the kitchen table and wrote 4 names at the top of a legal pad, Jack, Rosie, Emma, Ben. I wrote their ages and the last thing each of them had told me they loved, Lego spaceships, frogs, piano, anything with wheels. I wrote the dates of their next school concerts and what time their bedtimes used to be when their parents were still honest enough to admit that children need order. Then I dialed my lawyer. It was not anger that dialed. It was clarity. The kind that comes when you are forced to admit that a thing you thought could be repaired with one more generous act is not broken in the hinge but rotten in the wood. Martin, he said, it has been a while. I need to change a will, I said. And 2 trusts. I paused. And 3 contracts. He did not ask why. He has known me for 40 years. He knows how long it takes a man like me to be done. That night, I took out a box I had not opened since before Nancy died. She has been gone 8 winters, but her handwriting is still sharp enough to cut me when it catches me unready. The box held our old Christmas things, the paper chain from the year the kids could not stop fighting, the star with 1 point glued back after a fight sent the tree wobbling, the book we always read on Christmas morning, the same book my father read me, the one that smells like dust and oranges because Nancy once kept potpourri in the same drawer, and sent as a patient archivist. I pressed my palm to the book's cover. I tried, Nan, I said. I kept trying. Maybe I tried too long. It did not happen all at once, this slide toward mockery. Even kindness erodes when the people who rely on it begin to mistake it for a permanent right. If you had asked me 6 years ago whether my family respected me, I would have said yes immediately, perhaps too fast. Respect, I believed then, was a sturdy house you built, not a tent you could lose to one hard wind. I had built our house. Literally. 2 sets of walls over the years, one for Hannah when she wanted a home close to the good school she could not afford, and a second for Michael when his 4th starter business fell apart and he moved back to our town, as though admitting defeat and insisting on a trophy could be the same gesture. I co-signed loans. I paid braces, summer camps, insurance. I gave them a monthly cushion, my word, my mistake, so they would not feel the drop of the world's edge in their stomachs when emergencies happened. Emergencies became vacations, then became upgrades. The cushion turned into a waterbed and we all pretended it was a floor. One day the gratitude thinned. Another day they learned to joke about me. My jacket was too unfashionable. My stories were too long. My hearing was worse than it was, it is not. My grief for Nancy was a bit much. Dad, you cannot keep living in the past, Hannah said last spring when I declined to go on a couples trip with her and Aaron because couples trips are for couples. I have replayed each moment trying to identify the place where I could have turned us back. This is the trap of an old engineer's brain, to look at a family as a system that can be recalibrated with the right hex key. But people are not bolts, they are river water. You can only shape them if you are the ground. 2 weeks before Christmas, I set about fixing what I could for the only people who had not failed me, the children. Not to buy their love, though I am honest enough to admit that any gift a grandfather gives contains a small plea, but to make sure they had a rope hung for them across a chasm they did not dig. I wrote each grandchild a letter, folded it into blue envelopes with black ink, Nancy's colors, and tucked them into a small wooden chest I had made from the walnut slab that used to be our dining table. I wrote about frogs, spaceships, the first song Rosie played with both hands without stopping. I wrote about the day we planted a maple tree that now shades the whole yard. I wrote about mistakes and what it looks like to tell the truth after you have failed. I signed each letter with my full name because someday in a dormitory or a quiet apartment they will not want a grandpa. They will want a person. I gave the chest to my neighbor, Liza, who runs the children's reading hour at the library. If I die, I said lightly, or if I disappear from their lives in any other way, you will get these letters to them when they turn 18. You are scaring me, she said. People do not realize you are gone until they have made it permanent, I said. I am just staying ahead of it. On December 24th I did not log into the Zoom call I was invited to drop into if I felt up to it. I put on my boots and my wool coat and the scarf Nancy knitted the winter she lost her hair and pretended she was only cold. I drove to Michael's house, then to Hannah's. I thought I might just sit in the truck and look at the lights and make a bargain with whatever part of the sky is responsible for grace. Instead, I got out. Michael's living room window is not high. He keeps the curtains open in December for the neighbors to admire their tree. I stood by a hedge and watched the scene unspool in the soft amber of night, the children in their pajamas, the matching flannels Michael and Aaron were too old for, the bowls of cinnamon rolls rising on the radiator like little moons, the book I used to read placed on the ottoman at a safe distance, as if it carried an infection. A man in a red suit sat in my chair. He was not the mall man from the photo, but he was his echo. Younger. Expensive suit. Beard too white. He had the posture of someone who had taken one theater class and believed he had found his instrument. He tried a grandfatherly laugh. It landed just left of the note. Ho ho ho, he said. Where is my favorite girl? Emma darted past the coffee table to his knees. The actor looked to Michael for prompting. Michael nodded, eyes on the camera propped against a stack of wrapped boxes. A ring light glowed from the mantel. Aaron held his phone up vertically, then horizontally, then vertically again, searching, always, for the version of their life that can be replayed for likes. The actor opened the book. My book. He cleared his throat. Michael called out, "Hey. This is for Grandpa. Grandpa always reads it." And they all laughed. They laughed because the line was part of a script now, a tradition we perform without the person who authored it. The actor began to read. He mispronounced the name on the first page, and everyone ignored it. The children leaned in because children are built to forgive their elders' mistakes. It is what makes them vulnerable to the wrong elders. From the kitchen came the sound of muffled conversation. Hannah had arrived. I stepped further into the shadows and watched her shrug off her coat. She kissed Aaron on the cheek, then reached for a soda water and drank it in 3 disciplined sips. Her posture has become a fortress, perfect without warmth. Did you book him through the site? She asked. Michael nodded. He is better than Dad. He will not go off on some story about the war, or about how your grandmother made Christmas with nothing but oranges. Hannah smiled without malice and then, deft as a surgeon, slid the scalpel deeper. Or about how your father is too sensitive to be around all our traditions. They did not think of me outside in the cold. It would not have occurred to them that a man could be both mourned and mocked by the same people on the same night. Rosie looked up mid-sentence as the actor stumbled over a paragraph, a rhythm change she has always noticed quickly, the way her ears notice a wrong piano note before her hands do. I miss Grandpa, she said. Silence fell. Not a respectful silence. Not grief. It was strategy, for adults rapidly choosing a reply that would move things forward without letting feelings in. Grandpa is on Zoom later, Aaron said brightly. We will say hi. For now we have Santa. And they all smiled the way adults smile when a plan is working, even if the plan is to pretend that love is interchangeable. The actor, bless him, had the decency to redden under his beard. He looked down at the book as if he could fall into it. I stood there a long time. I do not know how long. Long enough for the story to end, for the ringing laughter to return with the chaos of wrapping paper, for the older kids to begin posting things in secret to feeds I do not follow. Long enough to see my own absence become an aesthetic choice. I went home and did not sleep. At 5:30 I made coffee I did not drink and eggs I did not taste, then watched the sky move from a stubborn indigo to the gray that means morning but not sunrise, not yet. When the light finally made up its mind, I put on a wool cap and walked to the shed at the back of my yard. There are 2 worlds in my life, the world of paper and the world of wood. When the first fails, the second restores me. I turned the lamp on over the workbench and ran my hand along the smoothness of a plank I have been saving for something important. It is a piece of black cherry I milled the spring before Nancy's last summer. I was saving it for a gift for Michael, then for Hannah. I stood with both hands on it, palms flat, spreading the heat of my skin into something that does not judge. By noon I had spoken to the bank manager, the college savings plan administrator, the accountant who handles quarterly payments for 2 small businesses that consider me part investor and part ambulance. I called the mortgage company that processes the auto debit I have made, without fanfare, on Michael's house for 3 years and 11 months. I filed a notice with the limited liability company whose generous contract keeps Aaron's home staging business solvent. I rescinded my guarantee on the line of credit for Hannah's health coaching venture, which has yet to earn $1 after 2 rebrands and a podcast. People are very polite when you end things if you use the right tone. A man who speaks calmly will be forgiven for changing the weather. I updated my will. The primary bequests remain, but they are no longer accessible by those who mock the source. The children inherit items that carry memory but not title. The money skips a generation now, with stipulations that would have made Nancy smile, that slow, private smile she reserved for rare moments of my stubbornness. The stipulations are simple: they must call me to receive the funds, not their parents. They must answer 3 questions about themselves that have nothing to do with achievement. They must read a book I have chosen and talk to me about it. If I die, they must do these things with someone who will listen. If they cannot, the money will go to the children's hospital where Nancy died smiling at a toddler in a red sweater. I am not punishing my children. I am recognizing who they revealed themselves to be. At 4:30 I dressed in a suit. Black, the one Nancy liked because it made me look like I had all my pieces in the right place. I put on the cufflinks my father wore once a year, then drove back to Michael's. The snow began while I was on the highway. Light at first, then curious, then urgent. I parked 2 houses away and walked. When I knocked, the dog, good old Mira, did her best to ruin the surprise. She remembers me even when people forget. Michael opened the door and went through 3 expressions quickly: surprise, relief, and a guilt you feel when the person you have lied about shows up with his hands empty. "Dad," he said. "We were going to call." "I know," I said. "That is why I came." He hesitated only a second before stepping aside. "Come in. The kids are in the den. We can." "In the living room," I said. Now. They gathered easily for me the way a pattern still resides in a fabric even after it has been washed and remade into something else. Hannah stood by the mantel, arms wrapped around herself without a sweater. Aaron held his phone, a reflex. The children clustered like minnows, brave, then scattering, then brave again. "I have 3 things to say," I began. "Then I will go and you can decide whether to do anything with the pieces." Emma's eyes widened. She has always liked lists. "First," I said, "I love my grandchildren. This is not a negotiable fact, nor a depending on behavior fact. It is a fact like winter. You do not have to like it to be warmed by it if you stand close." Jack grinned without meaning to. Rosie watched my mouth the way she watches teachers' hands. Ben burrowed into Michael's side and tried to hide his own smile under his sleeve. "Second," I said, "I know about the jokes. I have heard them, some because you sent them to the wrong thread, some because people are not as careful as they think they are. I know I am a lot. I always was. I also know I am the reason this house did not have a 'for sale' sign on it the day the market turned. I am not owed respect for what I paid. I am owed respect for who I am." No one moved. The dog snored softly. "Third," I said, and took a breath that felt like the first one of the day, "I ended the agreements. The monthly payments. The guarantees. The contracts that made it so your businesses could pretend risk belonged to other people. And I changed the will." Aaron actually laughed, a small, incredulous sound. Hannah's hand flew to her mouth. Michael's face flushed all the way to the edge of his hairline. "You cannot," Aaron started. "Ah," I said gently. "There it is." Michael found his voice. "Dad, this is a lot. You cannot just." "I can," I said. And I did. "And I have a sentence for you that you will not like, but you will remember." The children were very quiet. They will remember this scene when they are 30 the way I remember my grandfather putting on his farm hat and leaving the table halfway through an argument about the price of feed. One adult making a decision that changes the weather. I held Michael's gaze. Then I looked at all of them, each in turn, and said, "Now Mall Santa Claus will pay your inheritance. I am out." Silence. Not strategy this time. Impact. What does that even mean? Aaron said, but his voice had lost heat. You cannot talk to us like. I just did, I replied. I will leave you a list so you do not have to scramble. The bank will call about the mortgage on the 1st, so you have a week to move over the payment. The LLC canceled your contract as of the 31st, they will not pay for your staging after the new year. The line of credit will be closed at the end of the month, you can apply for your own. The college funds remain, but they now bypass you. If you want to know how, you can ask me like a person, not like a committee. Hannah's eyes glistened. She is too proud to cry. I love that about her. Pride has saved members of this family from worse things than inconvenience. Dad, Michael said, and for a moment he sounded like a boy with a snowman in his hands again. Did we really? Was it so bad? You asked me not to come for Christmas, I said. And then you hired a man to pretend to be me. You find that easier than the truth. I am granting your wish. I am making things easier. Grandpa, Rosie said softly, can we still see you? Yes, I said immediately. Yes, you can. That part is not changing. That part is on your parents if it changes. No one breathed for a heartbeat. Then Emma stood up very straight. I want to see you, she said, with the ferocity of a small person who has finally seen a doorway where before there was only a wall. Me too, said Jack. Me three, said Ben, from somewhere inside his sleeve. Hannah swallowed hard. Dad, she said, her voice low, we were not trying to hurt you. I nodded. You were trying to get through a day without having to hold anything heavy. You forgot that you are strong enough to carry the people who once carried you. The actor stepped out of the hallway then, carrying a cheap red coat folded over his arm. I had not noticed him there. His beard was off. He looked tired and honest. He took one look at my face and found the floor with his eyes. I am sorry, sir, he said. They did not tell me. It is all right, I said, and meant it. He was the only person in the room who had done his job. I walked to the door. Michael reached out as if to stop me, but his hand fell, unsure of what it was reaching for. On the porch I stood for a long time, breathing cold air that tasted like a new start and old restraint. The snow had thickened, softening the edges of the neighborhood, turning every shape into something kind enough to look at. Before I reached the walkway, a small shape slammed into me from behind, arms around my middle. Emma. She did not say a word. She just pressed her face against my coat the way she used to when she was 3 and we played tight hugs in the kitchen. Tuesday, I said into her hair. After school. The library. She nodded into my chest and let me go. On December 27th, I became a Santa of my own choosing. Not the red-suited kind, though Liza at the library did talk me into wearing a hat for the story hour, but the kind who shows up where the cameras are not invited. I sat on a low chair on a jungle rug while children leaned into the pictures. I went to the hospital and built a race track out of painter's tape on the floor of the pediatric hallway. I fixed a broken wheel on a toy cart and a broken hinge on a dollhouse and a broken resolve in my own chest. The last week of the year, I took the piece of black cherry and built something I had never built before, a desk that fits against a small wall in my den. I put Nancy's photograph there and the wooden chest of letters, and I sat down to write the next one. Dear Rosie, I wrote. Today I learned that sometimes, when people are afraid to feel, they try to replace feeling with performance. But there is an old trick to getting real life back. You sit very still until you feel your own heartbeat, and then you stand up and move toward the person who would hug you without a camera in the room. In January the calls came in a rush. Michael with his voice trapped between apology and defense. Hannah sounding like someone who has just realized the map she has been using was drawn by the least honest person in the car. Aaron with threats that wilted when I did not water them. Lorraine, my sister, who had laughed at the jokes as if laughing were a form of neutrality, crying because neutrality has a price. I took every call. I stood at my small cherry desk and I did not raise my voice. I said the same sentence to each person who told me they had not meant it to be like this. Then make it different, I said. And do not ask me to help you pretend you already did. It is easy, after a story like this, to imagine that the children stopped the jokes and came to me with humble hearts and steaming mugs, asking for stories about oranges and Nancy's way of wrapping a gift that could not possibly hide the shape of the thing inside. That is not what happened. What happened instead is quieter and more human. Hannah sent a message, "Can I come by on Fridays, just me, no phone?" Michael wrote, "I can cover the mortgage. I should have been covering it all along. Can we build the car with Jack in your shop next weekend?" Aaron said nothing. Silence is also human. In February, Emma and I began a habit. We met at the library after school on Tuesdays, then walked the long way around the block to my house so she could tell me about the thing her teacher said that did not sound like the teacher meant it to sound. I made hot chocolate badly. She pretended not to notice. She asked to see the letters. I said not yet. On the first warm day in March, Rosie stood in my shed doorway holding a small frog cupped in her palms. She had the careful smile of someone who respects a creature's right to leave if it wants to. We looked at it together. She said nothing about Christmas. She did not have to. I wish I could tell you that I forgave everyone and that forgiveness felt like stepping into a soft bed after walking too far. Forgiveness, if it comes, will not feel like that. It will feel like something I do in unexciting increments. A banal story, as requested by the universe, with small scenes and small decisions and the occasional sentence that changes the weather. I sometimes still think of that actor. I wonder what he told his wife when he went home on Christmas night. I hope he said he met a family and a man and that he decided to be honest the rest of the year. I hope he got paid in cash and that he spent it on something gentle. If you were here, you would ask whether I regret the way I said it, my sentence, the one that made Aaron's mouth open and close like a fish. I do not. There is no poetry that fixes contempt. There is only a line you step over. On one side, you are still funding people who will replace you with a costume. On the other side, you are a man who remembers his own name and says it out loud. I walked the neighborhood last night, the air sharp as a mint in my lungs, the stars bright like old friends you do not owe anything except attention. Several houses had already packed Christmas away, trees at the curb, ornaments boxed, ring lights dimmed. At my place, I left the tree bare and standing until New Year's Day, then I cut it into lengths and stacked them in the shed to dry. Next December I will plane one face of each piece and write a word on it, ordinary, patience, Tuesday, repair. Then I will burn them in the fireplace, one by one, while the grandchildren pick a book and the dog snores and the house, at last, settles around people who belong in it. And if, a year from now, someone suggests we hire a man in a red suit to make things easier, I will give them directions. There is a mall. There is a chair. There is a camera. There is a life that can be lived cleanly in the space where performance used to be. They can have that show. I have work to do with wood and paper and 4 small people who will someday be large enough to ask for the truth and to hold it without apologizing for the weight. The rest of the family can decide which side of the line they prefer. They know the sentence already. They have heard it in their sleep. Now Mall Santa Claus will pay your inheritance. I am out.
Hello everyone, and thank you for watching. I truly hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel to help support the creation of more stories like this. Have a great day or evening.